My name is Lindsay. I am a senior studying marketing here at the David Eccles School of Business. I'm excited for this opportunity to be involved in today's Sales Innovation Summit and to introduce our speaker. Dr. Sidni Shorter is President and CEO of the Utah Black Chamber of Commerce, as well as Director of the Utah Minority Business Development Agency. Previously, Sidni owned and served as CEO of Execute Now, a finance and accounting firm. She is an entrepreneur, fierce advocate, and practitioner of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Please join me in welcoming Sidni Shorter.
Good morning. Can you hear me? Yes. So good morning. I'm going to start with a faux pas. I have my arms folded, but that's what I feel like doing right now. I am so glad to be here with you all this morning. Did you all have an opportunity to hear Scott Cutler, to be in the room with greatness? I want to give him a hand, although he is not here. And I say that because, and I just shared with Lindsay, that I consider myself a lifelong learner. I love learning. Learning teaches me how much I don't know. And so I am always eager to do it. And I also believe that every opportunity is the opportunity to learn something if you want to. That is authentically me. I grew up very fearful. And so my shield was education. She's the smart girl. She's the weird girl. So I wore that proudly because it shielded you from all of the other things that I didn't want you to know. And I think if we're very honest with ourselves, in some way we do that. But what's really important is to be fierce, to be brave, to be you. So I have a couple questions for you. These are things that we typically do with others. How quickly do we judge? Just like that. Just like that. And I mean, we'll have a long list of judgments. Do we do it with ourselves? But what do we do with it? Do we have conversations with ourselves? Do you ask yourself questions? Do you evaluate yourself? Are you honest? Do you take notes? We do it with other things. So sometimes, because we don't do those things with ourselves, it's hard to know who we are. It can be very challenging to know who we are if we don't take the time. And the word I use is invest. As a society, we have been conditioned to believe that putting self first is selfish. I'm here today to tell you to please be selfish. Invest in you. Take some time to understand who you are, why you are, but also understand that that changes. If you are the same this year as you were last year, we are organisms, right? We're growing, we're learning, we're experiencing things, we're succeeding, we're failing, we're getting stuck, we're having challenges. All of those things help us understand who we are. So we talk about the imposter syndrome. And I believe there's been way too much credibility given to that. Because we are different in different circumstances and situations, right? Because we're human. So it's not that I'm being an imposter, I am being who I am. I always share the story. I am a big jazz enthusiast, and my husband and I travel going to jazz concerts. And jazz concerts, whether you know it or not, the audience is very eclectic, very different. There are all types of people there. And I had a unique experience. We were waiting in line to get into the park, and there were these 3 young men in front of us. And they were having a very lively, very colorful conversation, and so was their language. And it was getting a bit offensive. And authentically being who I am, excuse me, could you all kind of tone down that language a bit? You know, can't speak for anyone else, but I'm just a bit offended. And I got this is just who I am. This is what we do, this is how I talk. Okay, I understand. Do you have a grandmother? That was my question. And one of them said, yes. I said, do you speak this way in front of her? And he said, no. Oh, so you can be respectful. It was a choice. It was a decision. Now, in that moment, we both were being who we are. But he understood what I meant when I asked that question. Now, did that mean he was not being who he is? He just had to make an adjustment to do something that he knew how to do. Now, that was for me a very culturally specific question, because in my culture, I understand how we respect grandmothers. It is just certain things that are just not going to happen in the space. And so don't beat yourself up, making yourself, well, I'm this way here and I'm this. You are not a monolith, correct? I am not just this one thing. You don't have just one experience. You don't have just one class. There are things that inform that. One of the things we harbor that many times we don't want to acknowledge is fear. Fear is typically the greatest thing that prohibits us from being ourselves. But it's okay. Fear is fine. Fear is fuel if you choose. These are decisions that you are making. It's easier to make those decisions if you know who you are. But you have to truly invest and spend the time doing that. One of the things that I talk about regarding authenticity is that we often look for validation. We are seeking validation. And when we are spending the time and energy seeking validation, we are spending more time trying to understand what Julie wants of me. I need to understand what James wants of me, as opposed to spending that time understanding who I am. So I say validation is for parking, it is not for people. And that's my honest assessment, and that's how I move, because if I need you to validate me, you to validate me, you to validate me, you to validate me, who am I? What am I doing? And I can only understand Julie as much as I have an opportunity to engage, observe, be in her presence, do my research. And so now I'm moving according to how Julie would want me to move. And now I'm moving how James would want me to move. But in that, who am I? It's still perfectly fine if you are afraid. My mother had this saying, if you lie to yourself, you will lie to everyone else. Why spend all of your time with you? Is that a fact? 100% of your time is spent with you. 100% of your time is spent with you. Do the math. if you take a good fraction of that time and spent on yourself, understand what moves you, what you're passionate about, what makes your heart beat fast, what you love, what makes you not feel so good, what makes you uncomfortable. How do I react? How do I respond? How do I put myself in positions to learn how to navigate? That's important for you. And as you are business students, many of you may already be in careers. But one of the things that I will share with you, if where you are does not fit who you are, don't change who you are, change where you are. It's their loss or not. But in any circumstance or situation, you want to at least give major effort in giving it your best. And be honest with yourself if that situation or that space and that place and those people don't allow that for you. But whatever you do, don't change who you are at your core, who you know yourself to be, even in this season. Because trust me, it will change. Just as seasons change, so will you. There are things that you will love this year, and next year it's like, not so much. Not so much. People respect you being you, whether they like you or not. We were talking about, selling, right? We're talking about sales innovation. The first thing people buy is not the product, it's you. And if you show up not your authentic self, they don't have to know you to know you're not being yourself. We always use, and no disrespect to any industry, but we always talk about the car salesman, right? The guy who shows up and he's got the, and all of that. But we talk about that because there's just something about, I don't like that. I don't like how that feels to me. Probably could sell more cars. It's just who he is, because that is what we buy first. I always say you can't sell much if you can't sell yourself. Sometimes fear is the hindrance. I don't want them to know who I am. And it's not about being personal. That's okay if that's really who you are. Some people are an open book, and that is okay. And if you're stoic, that is absolutely okay. But understanding that is who you are, and you are brave enough and confident enough to bring that with you at all times. At all times. I shared with Lindsay, we had our annual Mardi Gras ball last night. I am from Louisiana. I am accustomed to working on fumes. It's Mardi Gras season. You take a nap, you take a shower, you change clothes, you keep going. Because everyone last night was like, you're supposed to be at the U in the morning, and I will. I will absolutely be there. Now, if this was July, probably be a problem. But it's like, I'm conditioned, so I'm making that, we condition ourselves for certain things. But I love to celebrate others. I love to party. And what's funny, you don't drink. I don't need to drink. I just love to party. I like to have fun. I like to enjoy myself, even in the business setting. It's who I am. And I'm not afraid to bring that. I'm not afraid to bring that. And if that doesn't work for you, that is okay. It works for someone. I have the saying that I understand, I'm not for everybody. Be okay with that. And it's not being disrespectful. It is not being offensive. It is being true to who you are and understand how to navigate that. But there's never a reason, and this is my true Southern roots. There's never a reason to be disrespectful. Never a reason to be disrespectful, even if you're disrespected. I mean, I have a son that'll be 40 years old, and he's seen me walk away from things. It's like, Mom, you're not gonna say anything. Once upon a time I did, but I outgrew that because I understood that giving of that energy was useless. It wasn't beneficial for me, and it wasn't beneficial to the person that I thought I was gonna teach them a lesson. And so understand how you use your energy. It makes good business. It's a great thesis of being yourself. Every opportunity you get, if you find yourself in a place that you truly can't be yourself, then it's really not the place for you. I share the story. My son was 8. And he's still a nerd. And he embraces that because, you know, our thing was, you know, be true to yourself, you know, understand who you are. And so he came home after school, and we had this thing about, you know, assessing our days. And that's what we would do around the dinner table. What was good? What was great? What could you have done better? What was a great experience? What made you laugh? All those things. So he was talking about recess and how recess was really good that day. And so as he was sharing with me, it was a little friend of his who, you know, he was kind of like a fair weather friend. And so he said that he played with him today. And I said, you did? He said, yeah. He said, but when I went over to him and said, you know, hey, you know, let's play, and he said, and he told me, no, Glenn, I don't want to play with you because you're annoying. And he said, yeah, I know it, but let's go do it anyway. He said, and so then we played. And he was okay with that. He knew he was annoying. But what the priority was that number one, I understand who I am, but we've got this game over here that, and you know, you're the best at it, so we probably need to go do that. You know, don't even let who you are get in the way. That was the lesson in that. Because he could have said, yeah, I know I'm annoying, I am annoying, and maybe you shouldn't play. Well, no, we should still go and do this. And they had a great time. It was a great experience. It was, you know, what he wanted to talk about at the end of the day. He didn't even focus on the fact that he said he was annoying, because the conversation immediately shifted to the game that they played and how great it was and how Nolan was so excited that they had the opportunity to do that. And you are perfectly fine. We all are a work in progress. Keyword work. But understanding that we work on ourselves. It is not selfish. It is important. It is critical. It is critical to your journey. It is critical to the impact that you make in every situation. We typically, and especially businesses, and I'm so glad I heard Scott say that, like the pinnacle, right? It's like, I'm trying to get here. My mom used to say it like this: you can't skip a step, because if you do, you're gonna have to go back and get it. I can't see that, I'm so old. 10 minutes, thank you. It's like, I love the signs, but I can't see it. But today is a step. What are you doing today? Who did you bring? What version of yourself showed up today? And whatever version you brought, is it going to get the best out of what needs to happen for you today? Confession. Today is my first day. I've been in Utah, it will be 2 years in April. Now I've been visiting Utah for almost 40 years. I have lived on the East Coast. That snow is different than snow here. Let's be clear. I don't live very far, but the closer I got, and I was sharing with Gwen, man, the closer I got, I mean, I'm literally like 0.6 miles. But the closer I got, the heavier the snow got, the heavier the snow got, the heavier the snow got. And I knew exactly where I was going, but I went to the wrong building, parked in the wrong parking lot. I come here often. And so I had this level of excitement of just driving in the snow. This was my first time driving in this kind of snow since I've been here. Now I could have shown up very different, right? Decision, it was a choice. I was not going to allow that to dim this opportunity. We all have the propensity to do that, but how do you want to show up? What is it that you're willing to invest? There are two things that I pride myself on, and that is service and sacrifice, but that's me. That is me. My husband told me, he said, this was right after Christmas, so January. And he said, I've been kind of watching. He said, and this is day 8 that you've worked at least 15 hours in the day. He said, but you're just smiling and your energy is high. But the reality of that is, I could make a different decision. I could totally approach my days differently. But in this season, that's not who I am. And I'm perfectly fine with that. I'm perfectly fine with that. So, when I evaluate self today, right now in this moment, is that this is a great opportunity for me to just share a snippet of why it's important to be who you are. It is important. You may not have decided that the pinnacle is not going to be your goal, as Scott said. You may not have decided that, okay, I'm going to do today the best that I can do today. But for me, it's a great opportunity that you made the decision to be here in this space to hear me and my small story. That means the world to me. That is fuel for me, because I have to leave here today to go to the state capitol. To just give voice to my being, my existence, and how I move and operate in the world. So I needed you. Don't know if you needed me. Because these are the things, these are the type of opportunities that give me fuel and faith to continue to be who I am. It's very important. You do not exist for you. So be selfish and spend the time to understand who you are absolutely, so that we can get from you what we need. Because you have so much to give. Thank you. Oh, Chandler. Yeah, Chandler's like awesome. But we are here for each other. So it's important to be selfish, but also understand that it's equally important to give. And sometimes we don't have that ability to give of ourselves because we haven't really spent the time on self. And we know it. I was there. Like I said, I hid behind the books. I started college at 15. I studied, I partied. I did tell you I was from Louisiana, right? You know. But I understood, but for me, school, that was my job. That was my job, and I absolutely was going to give the absolute best. And not that anybody was depending on me. Nobody was depending on me. But I had to do that for me because my self-esteem was so low. And so what I had was the smarts. And that's all you could see. Oh, she's smart. Oh, she's smart. Oh, she's smart. And I was okay with that. It's a journey. It is absolutely a journey. But it is a journey that you deserve to build for yourself so that we can benefit from the best self that you have. So be brave. Be brave enough for you. I know I have the propensity to protect others. I will run to your defense. Absolutely. Will jump in front of the bullet. And for me, it's like I see the bullet coming, it's like, okay. But I won't allow it to happen for you. And I understand that. I understand that's who I am. And understand that there are consequences for me when I do that. But I've evaluated and assessed and understood, for me, I am okay with that. I am beyond okay with that. And there's others who don't see it that way and they don't agree, but I do understand at the core who I am. Because I said that for me, what drives me is what? Service and sacrifice. And so that speaks to who I am. So my 5 minutes are good. I think we're going to take some questions. I can take some questions. I can keep talking. Anyone has any questions? Yes, Jarrell. Yes. I'm going to pronounce these names. I'm going to try.
Yes. Thank you for your speech, taking the time out of your day to come talk to us. I just had a quick question. You talked a little bit about being in Utah for just 2 years. And, just from a personal standpoint, I feel like growing up, being a first-generation college student, being the first graduate, soon-to-be graduate in my family, I typically didn't have necessary representation with individuals like yourself. And I think back on this past year, being in some incredible spaces with Tanisha Brown, Kenneth Broggs, and then DJ Jones, just to name a few.
Know them all.
Where do you kind of see, how do you see your perspective on Black business being in Utah? Just kind of looping yourself in that, you mentioned sacrifice and service. Where do you see that going in the next 5 years?
Okay, so I'll start with, if you are planning for today, you've already failed. So if you don't take anything else away, if you're planning for today, you've already failed. So thanks for the forecasting question. I'm going to ask a question. Has anyone in here ever seen a black dollar? Seen a white dollar? They're all green. Business is economics. It's an economic ecosystem. My belief is all businesses should be vital to the economic ecosystem, because either it's going to cost the system something or it's going to contribute to the system. So I do spend a lot of time addressing barriers, inequities, because it's still about that green dollar, right? And if you are in business, and I always say, you cannot eat passion. So your business needs to be principled and compliant, so that it is vital to the economic ecosystem. That's not black or white, right? But we also understand that there are things that impact that ecosystem because of those things. But what's important for me, one of the things that we pride ourselves on, and I have colleagues, I spent a lot of years on the East Coast. When I said I was coming to Utah to run the Black Chamber of Commerce, they were like, what? Does that exist? And if it does, why? But what we pride ourselves on is that we are one of the most diverse chambers in the country, in Utah. And it has gotten us a lot of national attention because that has been done on purpose, with purpose, because the priority is economics. That is the priority. And we all are a part of that, right? And there is value in us being in this system and ensuring that we all can participate, right? And so that is, when you look at the landscape for me from a Chamber of Commerce standpoint, and I have to make this clear too often, we are not a chamber of community, we are a chamber of commerce. This is about the economics. And so if you're willing, and you're willing, and you want to be in business, and we are doing the work to ensure that there are opportunities there are entities and organizations looking to Utah for what we deliver. I don't care what you look like. Can your business perform? Are you good at what you do? Are you the absolute best? Are you going to be a part of the positive and successful outcome? Then we're doing business with you. And we are working on your behalf. And so that is what's very important. But we cannot overlook some of those realities. But the reality is, if you are you, if you are committed to being who you are in whatever that space is, you're going to be just fine. You're going to absolutely be just fine. You're going to be just fine. You're going to be just fine. Not, did anyone hear me say the word easy? Yet? Ever? Didn't say that. But what I can tell you is that you're worth it. And for those of us who are counting on you, we're worth it too. Question. Thank you, Jarrell.
We got to wrap this one.
We got to wrap.
Sorry.
Wait. I'm doing something. Hold on. How do we do this? How do we do this?
I'll take it.
No, I want to do a selfie. Okay. I'm proving a point. Is everybody in? Are y'all all in this picture? There you go, Lindsay. Thank you all. I do not take lightly